I am. All right. Another video. Back in the car. Um, yeah. Not really sure what I'm going to talk about, but I think it's going to have something to do with fire. And I think it's going to have something to do with uh, what is known as problem, reaction, solution. Now, if you're not familiar with what problem, reaction, solution is, very simple and it's right in what it is. So basically, this is something that is utilized by the powers that be to influence and at some level manipulate events in the world on a social and economic and cultural and etc. level. But and I might talk about that a little bit, but I don't really like talking about all that kind of stuff because ultimately it's pretty irrelevant. It's like kind of like the echo. It's kind of like the illusion. It's kind of like the shadow of the truth. So if you've been outside of the light so long that any real light seems to kind of like burn your eyes and you're like then it can sometimes help to um, look at kind of the shadow of the light or kind of look at the indirect light to kind of get accustomed to the truth, to kind of get accustomed to the different angles and the essence of creation. Um, but I try to, you know, not focus my attention on the shadow of the truth. Um, so problem, reaction, solution. Um, I guess as an example, just something to kind of like bridge the gap between the physical and the spiritual in a sense. People who, all right, let's for example. So, like, it's like it's not like I don't even want to use a real world example because I don't even like, I'm trying to think of one that's, more not real world, but I guess we can just take let's say, we can just use Nazi Germany, really. So, basically, in Nazi Germany, which, I mean, they say if you don't learn from history, it has a tendency to repeat itself. So, we might see some parallels in the world today. I'll just say that. But in Nazi Germany, uh, so this is what they do basically. So, when they consider problem, reaction, solution, it's more like you look at it backwards. You say, okay, what's the solution that I'm looking for? What is the outcome that I am attempting to navigate to, or I'm attempting to herd these beings that I can consider my subjects? How am I going to get them from point A to point B? So that's the solution. Solution is point B. The problem is what initiates the movement from point A to point B. So it's like that movie Focus where he pokes you over here, but then he takes something over here, and then you don't even. It's like you're none the wiser. So, as an example, so in Nazi Germany, the solution was let's get rid of these people who we consider to be less than. Okay, how are we going to do this? Because we can't just, one day wake up and be like, okay, well, we're just going to kill all the Jews. Like, you can't really say that because people aren't really going to go for that. So what you have to do is you have to gradually, you know, uh, get people accustomed and conditioned to this idea. So you create a problem. So the problem was with the economy and all like this, whatever the problem was, that when this party came into power, it had a lot to do with the economy and the condition that people were living in. They were looking for, everybody's always looking for a savior, and that's kind of the problem. That's kind of getting off from this video, but everybody's always looking for a savior, and that's the problem. Don't look for a savior, because as soon as you look for a savior, there's a good chance they're not. First of all, nobody can save you, and if they say they can save you, it's because they have an agenda, and if they say they can save you, it's because they haven't saved themselves. And if they haven't saved themselves, then the only thing you're going to be doing is helping them chase their tail. So, because anyone who's saved themselves recognizes that you can only save yourself. It's like they can point in the direction, but they're not going to tell you exactly what you're going to find, because they recognize that when you look at the truth, what you see is going to be a reflection of who you are. And so what you see is just going to be your complementary self, whatever complements your identity that you've chosen to utilize when looking at the truth. So like your perspective, like when you're going into it, if that makes sense. It's not a one size fits all thing. So problem, reaction, solution. So the problem is they tell you, okay, well, we want to get rid of all the Jews. Okay, well, so now we're going to come out with all this propaganda. That's going to be the problem that we're going to create, is we're going to make the Jews the bad ones. So we're going to come out with all these movies, this propaganda. We're going to put it over the loudspeaker and, say that they're the ones that are causing all the problems and blah, blah, blah. And then people are going to react to that, and they're going to be like, oh, yeah, they're the bad ones. And then we're going to have our solution. So problem, reaction, solution. And I guess, because I guess that's not the best example of that. I guess when I say it doesn't really hit it home, I guess I will just say it. As far as like the guns, that they're, this is not really an uncommon thing. I think it was Stalin maybe that said it. Maybe it was Stalin. It was some Russian guy. I think he said, if you can, something along the lines of, if you can convince the people that they are in danger, they will trip over themselves to give up their freedom. So, and then it was like Thomas Jefferson, I think, that said, those who would give up their liberty for security deserve neither. So if you fuse those two together, you can kind of see what's kind of taking place in the world, is that there are so many people who are so willing to give up their sense of freedom, really, and their self-expression, and they have to be very politically correct, and they have to do things the way that the herd is moving so that they can remain in the herd. So because it's just any other herd mentality, their strength is within the herd. Like if you catch a wildebeest outside the herd, then that's just a base natural instinct. So there are certain, it's like you have two kinds of spiritual beings. You have the ones who have both of them have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of technical knowledge, a lot of spiritual knowledge, a lot of knowledge about alchemy and different things of how to put the elements, and not just physical elements, but emotional elements, mental elements, all these different things, put them together to create something. If they know more about that than you do, then technically they can manipulate things around you and you won't know that they're even there. They call that like the unseen hand or whatever, but I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of. So they'll say, so America, is like the land of the free and the home of the brave. And with the Second Amendment, the founding fathers recognized how important it was for the common person to be able to defend themselves adequately. And the reason why they did that is they did that against tyranny, as in ones who would seek to subjugate you against your will. And because that's what got them into the whole empire and the whole basically just because anyone who would attempt to subjugate you, they're subjugating you first of all because they have a problem, and their problem is that they are insecure. They have a big hole in their aura that they need to fill with something, and them telling you what to do and you doing it satisfies them to a point. But as time goes on, it's just like any other addiction, any other addict. They need more, they need more, they need more, they need more. So at the beginning, you might be like, oh yeah, having an emperor is cool. He seems like, okay, he just wants a little bit of taxes. He just wants a little bit of this. He wants a little bit of that. And in a perfect world, that's actually, if everything is okay, that's okay. But in the world, we see that's not what happens. There's very few times where it might be okay for a little while, but eventually, those demons come in, or those, those more base desires kind of creep in on these beings who presume themselves in power, and they start, you know, it's kind of like trickling down and hurting everybody that they say that are their subjects. So I'm trying I always like start with one point and then it's just like all over the place. So they'll say, okay, the gun thing. So long story short, Americans have a lot of guns, and if you were somebody who was going to try to subjugate people with a lot of guns, that's going to be a little more difficult. That's not going to be as easy as just, just like in Nazi Germany, just rounding up a whole bunch of people and just having a firing line and just having these mass graves. It's like if they all had a gun, then that's going to be significantly more challenging to produce the same result. So then the problem is for the solution that they're looking for then is the defenseless population. And this, I'm just telling a story. I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm not saying anybody's doing anything. It's just a way to paint the concept of problem, reaction, solution, and how it works. And whatever parallels you want to draw with the reality, that's with you. So if you were somebody who was going to try to subjugate a being in an attempt to gain control over them in a time where things are becoming maybe more uncontrollable in a sense because of the population and, just the internet. Like people are becoming informed, so it's very difficult to control a person who has knowledge, especially knowledge of themselves. So there's all these things with the whole, I don't remember what it's called, but they're trying to censor the internet basically, and all this crazy stuff. I mean, I don't like talking about that kind of stuff so much, so you can go look that up if you want to. But as far as painting the basic concept of problem reaction solution, one can see that if you were somebody, and this is just a story, right? I'm just telling a story. We can say this is like, using your imagination, we'll say. If you were in a position where it was your agenda to subjugate the people and they had a lot of guns, then you'd want to take their guns away, essentially, right? But then there's this thing that they have this called the Constitution. In the Constitution, it explicitly says you can't take away their guns. That's kind of what the whole country's built on. You can't do that. But then you can go and you can draw all these lines. Well, Australia, they don't have guns and everything's fine and all like this and all like this and no. And then you see more propaganda coming out with like I saw this clip of something with like the Late Show or the whatever show where they were basically it's propaganda. Like you got to see whether it's like this is all mind control. They'll say things like, "Oh yeah, the founding fathers are like your old grandpa, like he means well, but he's kind of senile and he's kind of da-da-da-da-da. These are the people that da-da-da-da." And then they try to downplay the point. It's like people in politics have a way of spinning things, okay? So they can take anything, that's the skill, and it's truth, because that's what a serpent does. It has a forked tongue. It can take anything, it doesn't matter what it is, make it seem bad, or they can make it seem good. A fact is actually meaningless. The only thing that a fact is something within a context. A fact only has meaning based on the context that it's interpreted within. So there you go. But let's just say that you were in a position where you could orchestrate events to take a population and get them to see guns as the enemy. Let's say that. How would I do that? If I wanted to take their guns away, what would I do? So that's why they have these think tanks, like, what would I do? How would I get this done? Okay, well, basically, like, if we just basically if we just put on this show where a whole bunch of people, innocent people, just randomly get gunned down. Let's just say that happens. Well, if that happens, then people are going to start to be a little like, I don't know, man. Like, if anyone can get a gun, then maybe I just feel less safe. And then it happens again, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, and it happens again, right? If it just keeps happening like every 3 days, then they're conditioning you for the solution, which is okay. Because if they just come out at the beginning, give us your guns, like you're gonna be like, what? And because you actually have the power, because you're the people. Like the people have all the power. Their power comes from your belief in their power. As soon as your belief in their power dissipates, their power literally dissipates. They actually have no power. What do they have? They have paper currency. But what does that mean? When it means nothing, what does it mean? When you don't believe in the paper currency anymore, what is its value? Nothing. It doesn't value at all. So this is they really have built a house of cards. Just blow it and the whole thing goes, just pop that little debt bubble and the whole thing comes down. And that's what it is. And they know that that's what's going to happen. So it's the whole, and this ties into the fire thing. They know that that they cannot carry on like this. That their habits in subjugating people, and it's really their greed, because I said they're like addicts and they're very insecure. They are in fear, like the worst kind of fear, because they literally have no connection to the spirit. And the connection that they do have to the spirit is a direct reflection of their fear. So they're dealing with eidolons and spirits that are evil, right? So when they do their little rituals and they summon these things, if that's what they do, then they're not summoning, or invoking or evoking some type of force that is balanced. Like they're evoking reflections of themselves, which is reflection of their own security. So it's just a vicious cycle. And then since they are on the leverage point, the point with all the so-called power, they're in these offices and these type of things, then it goes downhill. And if you believe, like you go vote, you go do these things, if you believe that this being in this office, because they have a title, is higher than you, then now you're in, I'm not saying it's always a bad thing, but you have to pay attention and be careful, when you give your will away. That's very important, because your will is who you are. So I'd watch that. But, so they do all these things with these mass shootings, blah, blah. Problem, reaction, solution. I mean, I guess that's really simple. So I hope that makes sense, because I don't like talking about that kind of stuff too much. Yeah. All right. Right back. So, yeah. I hope that makes sense about the problem, reaction, solution thing. I really wanted to say more about it, and maybe I will at some point, but I don't want to make this video too long, and I'm gonna move this right along into the next part. The other thing that I wanted to talk about in this video, well, I guess I'll mention the fire thing real quick. So the element of fire is really the universal principle of action. So in the world, see, this is a very big thing to try to explain, and I'll try to do my best to make it as simple as possible. But it is epic. Like it is like the grand cosmic drama and the grand cosmic lesson. And so, okay, let's just start with something very general. Like, okay, so the planet is heating up, right? So the planet is heating up. They say that the planet is heating up because of greenhouse gases and blah, blah, blah. And who knows? Maybe that's the case. Maybe it's not. But it's really irrelevant what's causing it. What's relevant is the fact that it's happening. And what causes something to heat up is fire. So you know that we're dealing with fire. So in this, the whole physical representative of the plant heating up and the ice melting, and because water holds memories. Water holds is a structure. Like water is like a crystal structure that can hold information. So when these crystals or when this ice melts, you're literally the memories and the information that was once kind of blocked is now starting to go into your subconscious, which eventually arrives into your conscious, because the ocean is symbolic of your subconscious. So when it goes into your subconscious, eventually it comes into your conscious, if that's what you're choosing to focus on. But regardless, the planet is heating up. Also, so you know that the fire is coming to the planet. So we ask, what is fire then? Fire is the universal principle of action, action and reaction, and that's why it ties into the problem, reaction, solution, because they're using fire to manipulate people. So that's because that's the God they serve, you can say. Like Yah, like that's the fire God. He's always on fire, so he's a little, irritable, like he's ready to rain judgment upon you at the slightest, slight. So, and he needs to consume things. And he's very masculine, and it has to be this way, and or it's fire and brimstone for you. And that's the manifestation of a lot of these religions and different things. So basically, fire is simply fire. Fire is simply the urge to move. So, but the urge to move is going to be, everything moves differently. Like a bird moves differently, a person moves differently, an ant moves differently. So people just getting the urge to move, you're not going to necessarily move the same way as somebody else. So the goal of them or whoever they are, which, and let's just really be clear, because I say they and all like this just because I don't like pointing fingers, but truth be told, ultimately the so-called they, whoever they are, whether they be the governments or the religions or the banks or whoever, ultimately they're you. Like they're a reflection of your own subconscious, your own projections to show you a part of yourself so that you can take some notes and learn something so you can get to the next level. That's really what it is. So it's not to paint these beings as your enemy or whatever. They are a part of the balance. So let's just be clear about that. It's not to make these things your enemy. And when you start dealing with fire, this can be that's one of the biggest hangups of fire. Fire is a very powerful principle, but when you start using fire to destroy things because you feel like you're right and they're wrong, this is when you get these people who want to blow themselves up and do all these different things, kill people and use violence. They're utilizing that kundalini aspect of fire to cause harm to others out of their own ignorance. So, yeah. So the planet's heating up. So everybody's going to want to start moving. They're going to want to start doing things. And they know this, right? So they know this in advance. So that it's like when that movie Selma came out, like it takes 2 or 3 years to make a movie. So is it a coincidence, like in the movie Straight Outta Compton and all these different, like racially charged movies, they take years to make. So do you think that this isn't all, you see, problem, reaction, solution? It's propaganda. It's something to get you to look in a certain direction because they know you're going to move. They know that you're going to move. Like you must move. The fire's here. You must move. So their whole thing they see you as sheep. And in a sense, if you're unconscious, you are a sheep. So more power to them, I guess. They will herd you into the direction that serves them. And if you're asleep, then you're not serving yourself. You might as well serve them. I mean, let's just be real. So, but if you're awake, then you can easily just leave the herd. And by universal law, they can't actually stop you from leaving the herd because I won't even go into all that, but have no fear, right? So that's what it is. And maybe I'll just make a whole video about fire at some point and just really, break it down a little more. But I hope that kind of ties that in together so you can kind of get just a basic idea of the whole global warming thing, and just kind of so you can see a deeper level of how that's playing out in your own consciousness on a more subtle level, and how you feel like you might be trying to wake up. Like if you're sleeping and somebody, puts some fire close to you, you're like, oh, you're ready to wake up real quick. So that's the universe is using this fire, you could say, to wake you up. But if you wake up but the whole time that you've been asleep, they just been like blaring into your subconscious all this bull, basically this nonsense and violence and drama and all this division and just craziness, then when you wake up, you might think that your dream is, it's like you might not be able to differentiate what's really going on. You might be very far away from the truth. So it's important to, be conscious, be aware, take a step back and see what causes you to actually get sucked into these things in the first place is your fear. It's always fear, because if you have no fear, then you're not in a rush to do something. You're not in a hurry. So it's very easy to be still. And it's only when you're still can you see clearly. It's like the same thing as like when the water is very churned up and you try to look through it, you're going to see, it's very difficult to see things in the water or even to see your own reflection in the water or to see through the water. But when it's still, you can see your reflection, you can see into the water, you have much clearer vision. That's your whole consciousness when it's still. So we bring things into a stillness. And then you can see that, but everything in the external reality is always trying to get you to go over here and then go over here, then go over here, then go over here. And if you're just kind of always like this, it's just like a generator. You're generating energy for whoever is putting on that show. Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, Trump, Bernie Sanders. You're just generating this energy for them, right? But if you just kind of like see through that, just like it's not even there, like it's like the same thing as like whatever, you get it, right? So so there you go. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was your connection. And because it's one thing to say, the fire's here and, all like this and, but it's another thing to, okay, well, how am I going to, because I recognize that I'm being charged, like the planet is being charged. You see that there's a lot of action in the world right now as far as the wars and all of the, the so-called attacks and the show, the plays and the politics and just all the craziness. There's a lot going on right now. So the fire is here. It's just they're trying to take the fire and capitalize on the fire. So right. So the next, if I was to provide a solution then, because I don't want to just be like, okay, here's the problem, but the solution then is to be, because the problem reaction solution thing is not just, again, that's when they use it, it's a shadow of the truth, but the problem reaction solution is the truth. That is the truth. That's how the universe operates. So if you can start to see, a problem comes up in your life, if you can just be like, okay, here's the problem, but where it's like, when I solve this problem, first of all, it's like, do I need to solve the problem? Maybe it's just a distraction, but let's just say I recognize that this is an obstacle that I need to overcome. When you go through it, the reaction that you have to that problem, first of all, shows you who you are. But once you react to that problem, chances are that in the reaction, you learn something when you go through the process that brings you to the point that the universe had intended or your higher self had intended, right? So problem, reaction, solution. So they'll put the problem in your path, or you'll put the problem in your own path, anticipating your response to move you to the next step. Because if you're just very comfortable, you're just chilling all day, whatever, and it's like you're not even in a place where you can even think about this kind of thing, then the universe or your higher self or whatever you want to say might come and be like, well, all right, well, let's just take his job away and see what happens, right? And then hopefully when we take his job away, then he'll kind of take a step back and be like, wait, why did this happen? Hopefully. So you get the idea, right? So the universe uses this above all else. So that's what this whole play is about, is the solution to this problem is you become a star. You so-called ascend. You become one with nature. That's the solution, right? So if the solution is you become one with nature, you become a sun, you ascend, you become a supreme being. If that is your destiny, or if that is what because like I said in the last video, everything grows, everything evolves. So a sun didn't just wake up one day and learn to be a sun. It had to go through a growth process. So a sun cannot govern all these planets if it hasn't had the experiences of everything on all those planets. So a sun is a very wise being. So you can learn a lot from a sun. Like, so you can learn a lot from, we're all on this path here. So I want to talk about service, right? So when you have a cell phone and you have no connection, it says you have no service. So this all ties in. So if you want a connection to the cosmos, then you must be in service, because why would it give you information if you have no purpose to have the information? So that's kind of the first kind of like little play on words here is the whole no service thing. When it says you have no service, because your body is, like they say, cell phone. Your body is a cell within a body, a bigger body, the earth. You have trillions of people, trillions of cells in your body, and all these different other beings that aren't humans that are all cells, trees, and all the living things. They make up, like the trees, like the lungs of the earth, and so everything is making up this being called the earth, which is another cell within another body. When that body is another cell within another body, it's fractal. It goes on forever. So your body then is the cell tower. Like if you look, when you walk, you look like a tower on the land. Like from a point of view of an ant, or like, anything on the ground, you tower above them. You're literally a giant to most things on the earth. To the majority of things on the earth, you're a giant. So you literally tower. So you are the tower. So it's like how the tower functions is like a lightning rod, right? So and I might have said this before in another video, I'm not sure, but it's a very basic concept where the lightning is going to go to, first of all, the highest point and the most conductive point. So between those two things, the highest and the most conductive, that's what's going to receive the energy, or that's what's going to receive the information. That's what's going to receive the light codes. That's what's going to receive all that. So when you're in the city, you're generally spiritually not very high. And if you're eating all these foods and you're real fat and you're real lazy and you never want to go outside and you never want to do anything, you're just kind of whatever, then you're not very conductive. So you're not getting any information, and you're surrounded by Wi-Fi and all these different, the artificial cell phone towers and all these things. So you're constantly being bombarded with all these artificial signals that disrupt the harmony of your flow with the cosmos and nature and your mother and all the. So it's getting kind of dark, isn't it? So yeah. When you become one of these towers, like when you start getting these like you start coming the lightning rod, it's like you might go through some things. Like, I guess this is like, I mean, this could be like a whole nother video right here, but you might go through some things on the path because you're becoming a better conductor of energy. So it's like if you run electricity through something that like is corroded or is some way impure, it starts to build up a heat because there's a resistance to the flow. So the universe, it's like, this is the whole point with the fire. It's like everybody, obviously not everybody, but the majority of the beings on the planet seem like they have a lot of resistance to the truth because their reflection and how they live is in opposition to the truth in a sense. It's like almost like the opposite of truth, the way that most people live, especially in so-called first world countries and all these things. So there's a gradual process here. The planet doesn't just heat up in a day, but it is heating up. So it's giving you the opportunity to purify yourself, become more conductive, place yourself in a position to be able to conduct the energy, because the energy is going to arrive regardless. It cannot be stopped. This is not something that anyone on the planet has the ability. You can't stop. It's like you can't stop like a signal from the center of the galaxy. It's like you can't stop a solar flare. So you can't do it. And that's by design. So there's nothing that they can really do to really disrupt the process. It's like they can make like they are, do some chemtrails or something, but it's like they're delaying the inevitable. So, and they're doing it out of fear. So the idea is to become more conductive. But let's just say that you don't become more conductive and the planet heats up. So basically, more and more energy is attempting to be um, to run through your body, because right now it might seem a little, it'll grow exponentially. The the energy that comes to the planet will grow exponentially. So right now it's kind of like, it's like chugga 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 chugga. So once it really gets going though, it's like if you're watching this video, obviously you feel it, but you can look around and see that people, there's people who, don't really feel it, but they will feel it at some point. Like, they will feel it. But if you do feel it, you have a service. And even if that service is just to yourself, to be able to hold more energy, because if you hold more energy, that's less energy that somebody else has to hold, if that makes sense. But the reverse is, it's like there's an abundance of the energy. So it's not like, it's just, there's a good and a bad to it. So on the good side, the service, if you can hold more energy, then you're holding space, you're holding energy on the planet to really, that is your service, to really give your brothers and sisters more opportunity to really rise. Because as you hold more energy, you start to amplify the signal. And since if it's coming through your human frequency, then they may be able to understand it more if it's coming from a human. Like if they walk outside and they look at the sun and the sun's trying to tell them what's up, but they have no eyes to see or no ears to hear, and their connections are all messed up, they might not be able to hear. But if you go tell them, or I go tell them, or somebody who can hear is telling them, then they can start to look in the right direction, or they can start, start utilizing some of the age-old wisdom to be able to align themselves with the position that's going to facilitate their growth. So it's almost like those, like you see, like you got a Wi-Fi signal. That's like the sun is like a Wi-Fi signal, and it's sending out these codes. But then you got the artificial Wi-Fi signal that's trying to like disrupt that. That's like, the battle of good and evil in a sense, right? So you've seen like if you have like one Wi-Fi signal, then you have like these, like, I don't know if they're called this, but they're like repeaters. Like they focus the signal and then they redistribute it. So the original Wi-Fi signal might be the sun, but you're like one of these repeaters. So the sun comes down into you, and then you start repeating that signal like that. But see, the flip side works too. Like if you're watching TV every day and you're listening to this trap music and all this, what you're doing, eating all this bad food, then you start repeating that type of GMO nonsense. You start repeating that type of senseless drama and crazy insanity. That's what you start repeating into the world. Like when you go and you talk to your friends, you're talking about the football scores, or you're talking about, some girl at the club or something. That's what you're talking about, because you're repeating the frequencies of the disharmonic energies that you've been letting go through your portals. But if you're letting the organic light, because that's the false light, that's the illusion, that those are the false promises that they told you to beware of. Beware of the false promises. Those are the false promises. The organic light, on the other hand, it's not really going to sugarcoat it for you. Like basically, like the planet's heating up, it's like, it's like what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you going to get it together or are you not? You feel me? So it's such a beautiful thing though. Like, it's like, if you are sentient in any way, it's like, there's no, like, it's like you can't be like, I don't want to do that. It's like, it's designed that way. It's like, it's like, how could you not want that? The only way that you wouldn't want that is if you are so lost, if you are so much in darkness that you identify with darkness. And that's whatever. You know what I'm saying? There's a time for darkness, there's a time for light. And if the light's coming, we just came out of the dark ages and all this stuff. So, you know, the light, it's like in the light, it goes like this, and in the darkness it goes like this. So there's light within the darkness, there's darkness within the light, just like in a yin yang. And there's also an overall scheme to that. Like that yin yang is also placed in another yin yang. So everything is constantly, so that's how you navigate. You can travel. So that's why it's the one who knows how to navigate. It's always light, or it's always darkness, or it's whatever they want to, wherever they want to navigate to, because it's really all the same thing. So that basically the repeater and the Wi-Fi and da 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 da. Another little concept is if you ever seen like those like, I don't know if this is just something that I've seen or if this is something that, but if you see like those, well, you have seen them before, like the statues where they got like the face over here, the face over here, face over here, face over. And imagine if you had like an uncountable amount of faces like that. Those are like the faces or the facets of your crystal that's refracting light. So there's like a projection over here, projection over here, projection over here, projection over here, right? So you have all these different projections, and based on your identity is one of these faces. So you as the supreme being have all the faces, but your identity keeps you locked into one of the faces. So when you can learn to not identify with one face, then you can start to look through the eyes of everyone. You can look through the eyes of the animals, you can look through the eyes of people, you can look through the eyes of the sun, you can look through the eyes of whatever you can allow to flow through you when you don't have resistance, the degree of your conductivity. So if you imagine like all those faces are like a flip book, and then each face is like what page in the flip book, and then when you flip them all together, they tell a story, right? But each one of those faces, because this is getting into like, the dimensional aspect of things, but each one of those faces is its own individual flip book. So it's like, if it seems like, I don't know if I can explain this, but like, if it seems like if like the whole being seems like it's just like it's timeless, like it's not in time, like the being's not moving, but if your perspective was to move around all the faces, it would seem like a flip book. But let's just say that you just focused on one identity or one face in that, and on that flip book, that would be its own individual flip book. So that one identity has a whole story in and of itself, and that whole story is a reflection of all the other faces. So it doesn't really matter even what story you're in, because you always see yourself. That's all you can ever see. So hopefully that makes sense. Another very important principle to this whole ascension thing and all like this is that you want to be able to expand non-destructively. It's very important. It's very important. You are going to implode, or you are going to be charged with energy regardless. It's just, is that energy going to move you to irritability and aggression and drama and bullshit, excuse my language, or is that going to move you towards discipline and willpower and benevolence and trust? So you have these two different sides of the fence that you see beings kind of, on these different sides. It seems like, well, I won't go into that, but because again, you are all these different faces. So like, let's say that in your growth process, you harm another being. You just harmed yourself. So you created a wound, and it costs energy to heal wounds. So somewhere along your trip, you're going to have to heal that wound. So wherever you are, if you're doing your best, you should not harm things. Like, this is very simple ancient wisdom. Don't harm living beings, because you're only harming yourself. It's very simple. So, yeah, expand non-destructively, because that's the golden ratio. That's the golden mean ratio. The Fibonacci sequence is, you see in the spiral and the snail shell and all these different things in nature, is it goes forever. But how does it do that? It does it because it's going in forever, and it's not ever touching itself. It's never actually blocking itself. It's never like crossing its lines. You see what I'm saying? Like the swords come together and and then someone dies. Like it's never doing that. It's just always in harmony with itself. It knows that there's no such thing as space. So it's like it knows that this circle is just as valuable as this circle, as just as valuable as this circle, this circle, this circle, this. So it can implode forever. It has no concept of time or space, so there's no fear. You can never run out of time, and I don't have to hold on to anything because none of this belongs to me. It's all me. It's like my dude said, you can't take anything from me because where would you put it? It's like if everything is inside of me, you can't. It's like you can take it and then put it where? There's nothing outside of myself. There's nothing outside of the universe. So you can't. You're gonna take it from put it from over here and put it from over. Okay, like, okay, like it's the identity that causes the issues, and the identity is a tool. And to be like Bruce Lee, be like water, my friend. Like if you go into this vessel, fill that vessel. Go into this vessel, go fill that vessel. Be non-biased and see yourself in everyone that you meet. And you'll start to feel, it's like they will fill you and you will fill them. And then eventually you guys are constantly filtering each other, recycling each other. Eventually the whole pond is pure. So that's what's up. And this is really like a whole nother video, but another little basic concept of lunar versus solar and the black hole versus a white hole. Now, the sun, just as an idea, may not be exactly what it appears to be. The sun may be a hole. It's like it might be a hole. It might actually be a portal. It might actually be giving things, right? It's like it's not solid. Like it's a hole that's giving things. It's almost in a sense like the opposite of a black hole. It's like the black hole's taking in light and the sun is giving out light. So you have the masculine and the feminine principle right there. So it's like they're both electromagnetic, but you could say that the black hole is like magnetic because it's pulling everything in, and then the sun is more electric because it's pushing things out. And when you put them together, then things happen. And that's the relationship between the earth and the sun, and that's what it is. Now, you could say the lunar or the feminine cycle and all like that is more like a it's like the I don't, because I don't, it's like they're all interchangeable, so I don't want to say that one's higher, one's lower. Technically, everything's technically female. The male is just a masculine female. Everything is the female. Just like there is no real, there's gender is a concept. It's not actually true. So just so we can get that. But just for sake of, the concept, you could say the female is more like the dragon. It has a lot of power. It has a lot of raw energy, but sometimes it needs like the magician, or like you see those stories like the magician riding the dragon, or it needs that order to it, or else it'll just kind of be given to its more, it'll kind of be more given to its senses. It can't really see. It literally is the storm. So it is in the storm. It's the storm. So it can't actually, it's difficult for it to navigate itself because it's inside of itself. So then you get this. So that's like the serpent force. So you have like these, like that, the old principle of the cranial force and then the serpent force. So the cranial force is up here, like the bird, the hawk, right? Like Horus the hawk. And then you have the feminine serpent principle or the dragon principle. And then when they work together, they're unstoppable. And the reason, if just even in nature, you look at the eagle or you look at whatever, they fly above the storm. So it's like they don't actually have to deal with the storm. They're flying so high that they look down at the storm. So they can see everything that's happening in the storm. That's their power. They have vision. So that's up here. So when you're up here with the third eye and all like this, you can see everything that's going on in your reality and everything that's going on in your body, and you can bring order to things. But you don't actually have the energy yourself to create everything. So it's like you can't be like, oh, my lower self is evil and I don't like my lower self and blah blah blah, I'm gonna get rid of my lower self. That's ignorance. That's obviously couldn't take place. So um they need each other. Like electricity, it's like if you, I'm trying to think of a good example for this, but basically electricity, like it's like if you have like one of those Tesla coils, it's like there has to be something that stimulates the electricity to be pulled towards it. Like if this is just a charged pole, it's not just going to start like just zapping things around it. There has to be some kind of ground. There has to be some feminine principle there for it to be attracted to, so it can actually bridge the gap. So that's what's going on. You have to have an attraction to this world so that you can bridge the gap. So your attraction to this world is your purpose. So in what greater purpose than to realize the oneness of all things and show compassion and love to all things? What greater purpose is there than that? And once that happens, you're limitless. There's nothing you can't do, because that is such a pure principle. Compassion and love for all things and the recognition of oneness and who you really are is the purest of principles. It is the highest of truths. So therefore, because it's highest, it has the most potential energy. So there's nothing it can't do. So that's very important, is to focus on pure principle and all like that. And I guess this is the last thing because the video is getting long. And I'll come back, and I'm kind of like rambling, I guess, in this video, but I will come back at some point, I guess. But this is the last thing. If you were to see, you have a magnetic field around your body. Now, the things that you do every day, you start to train your magnetic field. It's like the same thing. It's like if you sit on the couch all day, then your body might look like you sit on the couch all day. It's like if you run every day, your body might look like you run every day. If you swim every day, your body might look like you swim every day, etc., etc. So your magnetic field is the same way. With your thoughts, if you think the same way every day, that influences your magnetic field. If you come up with the same emotions, the same type of habits, and all that influences your magnetic field. So we learn to train our magnetic fields through focus and through action, and that's Tai Chi and Qigong and all these different things in yoga. It's extremely beneficial for setting into harmony and balance your magnetic field and bringing the two hemispheres of yourself into harmony together. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't know. Yeah, hopefully made sense. Yeah, all right, cool.